week one edition of the Field of 12's college football best bets. My name is Rob Dauster. I am joined today by our third co-host here on the Field of 12's best bet show, Jimmy Ott with ESPN Radio Baton Rouge 104.5 FM, and my BetRivers colleague, as you can see right there on his nice button-down shirt. I don't have the button-down shirt on. You're trying to make me look bad on my own show. But Jimmy, what's going on, man? Thanks for being here.
Oh, man, glad football's here. You know, a light appetizer in week 0. Not exactly the most appealing card, but this one's good, man. We got a couple of good ones on Thursday night to kick it off. The backyard brawl, and again, a Big Ten conference game in West Lafayette and Penn State and Purdue.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, look, there's a lot of bad things that have happened with realignment in college sports. I think one of them is the fact that we lose a lot of these rivalries, like the backyard brawl. I am very excited that this game is coming back. There's a lot, for people that don't know, there's a lot of dislike, I think is the best way to put it, between West Virginia fans and Pitt fans. I'm excited to see what's going to happen there with that matchup. Before we get into these breakdowns, before we start talking about the bets, before we start talking about the gambling, at our hearts, we're college football fans, right? So I want to know, what is the one game on the week 1 slate that you're most excited to watch?
I don't think there's any doubt it's Utah at Florida. And, I mean, Utah gave us quite the show on a watered down bowl season with the Rose Bowl. I mean, that was unbelievable stuff. 3 of the biggest mistakes as far as starting the wrong quarterback were at Tennessee last year when they had Milton ahead of Hooker. At Miami, it cost Manny Diaz his job when he had De'Ara King playing ahead of Van Dyke. And it was also at Salt Lake City when it cost him 2 games playing Charlie Brewer instead of Cameron Rising. And this guy really executes Whittingham's system. And I mean, this is a conference, obviously, that's under siege right now. They lose USC, UCLA, probably Oregon will be the next to jump. And it's a conference on life support. And if they're going to have any chance of getting into the college football playoff, this is a gotta have type of win. And I hear a ton of stuff about Richardson and all his potential. I have not seen it on the field just yet, but he has that potential. But this is in the transfer portal. You see it a lot. First-year coaches are dealing with a more depleted roster than traditionally. And I think it's a great matchup. Whittingham does a great job. They destroyed, an Oregon team twice, 2 times in the last 3 weeks of their season, and at the line of scrimmage as well. Florida only returns 1 defensive tackle from last year's team. Utah has a lot coming back. This is probably Kyle Whittingham's best team. So, and going the guy he replaced in Urban Meyer, he's going to his former place where he won a couple of national championships in Gainesville. Going to be very interesting. Going to be hot. The altitude, we have already talked about that. They're trying to put in heaters and noise in their indoor facility to try and acclimate or help acclimate. But we'll see how that goes as well, because that will be a test in the 90 degrees and about 90% humidity as well.
Yeah, it's hot in Utah. There's nothing that you can do to prepare for the Florida humidity in August and early September. All right, I'm gonna ask you more about that game. I have a couple of questions I want to get into. Before we do, let's dive into Thursday night's games. That's happening tonight. I want to start with the backyard brawl. West Virginia at Pitt. That line is now Pitt -7.5. The total there is 52, according to our friends over at BetRivers Sportsbook. The last time they played this game was in 2011. We have JT Daniels. We have Keaton Slovis. It opened up at Pitt -6.5, Jimmy. And it feels like everybody that I've read, everybody that I've listened to, every tweet that I've seen, every single mention of this has been Pitt, 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 Pitt. Everybody seems to be on the Panthers. Are you on them as well?
No. I'm on West Virginia. Excuse me. I'm on West Virginia, and it's one of my favorite win totals, over 5.5 this year. Neil Brown is he's more of a conventional type of schemes. No high throwing the ball all around spread, but they will probably go to that this year. But that was a major. The reason I bring up sort of his standard sound approach to coaching in his style, because he replaced Dana Holgorsen, and that was an extreme style. There was an ultra finesse, not a whole lot of physicality with his program. Both teams have USC transfer quarterbacks. Both teams have new offensive coordinators. Both teams return their entire offensive line tackle to tackle. But Pitt is not a program that just can replace guys like Pickett and Addison. They're pretty good on the defensive line as well. But West Virginia returned six of their top seven defensive linemen from a year ago. They do have some explosion at the wide receiver position. My point is that JT Daniels has some weapons here. So this is going to be fun to watch. I think West Virginia is one of my more popular, one of my most improved teams. Graham Harrell, this is going on a lot in college football this year, Rob, and that is quarterbacks are transferring with an offensive coordinator or head coach that they had a previous relationship with. He was the offensive coordinator coming in at USC when he was his true sophomore season. Remember, that was supposed to be his true freshman year. He started as a true freshman when he should have been a senior in high school. He got hurt in his first game. He tore his ACL. I think it's going to be a nice marriage. Secondary market, selling the tickets, all West Virginia making that short trip. That's a little bit of an indication how excited they are for this one. It's going to be ugly. 7.5 points is a lot of points for the first game of the season when the offenses are usually behind the defenses. I love West Virginia in tonight's game.
Yeah, that total has been coming down a little bit too. And when the total is coming down, it tells me you want to be on the side of the underdog, especially when we're getting that plus 7.5. If it's at plus 6.5, I think it's a little bit different, at least the way that I'm looking at, but you're getting a full touchdown. So I think that you're right on West Virginia. One thing I will say, it's a quarterback's game. Our Christian Hackenberg last night on the Field of 12 After Dark said he thinks JT Daniels has NFL caliber arm talent. So I'm going to trust those guys. Those guys know football better than I do. So I think we're both on the same page there. West Virginia money line, that's going to come into play in a little bit. That's what we call a tease here in the media space. So we'll get to that in a second. All right. Penn State minus 3.5. They're playing at Purdue. It is a Big Ten game to open the season. The total there is 53.5. The Purdue money line, Jimmy, I don't know if it's something that you're interested in, is plus 143. We have Sean Clifford. We have Aiden O'Connell. Where do you stand there?
Usually I'm at a spot looking for some value and taking the non-brand team. I guess you could call Purdue that because Penn State is more of a name brand in college football than Purdue at home catching points. But same thing here. I just don't know about Purdue replacing, guys like Bell, who's going to start for the Cleveland Browns, and George Karlaftis, who's had a heck of a preseason for Kansas City. He's going to be a big part of their defense. They lost their best two players. Jeff Brom had a good year last year. They won a bowl game, and with those guys sitting out as well when they beat Tennessee, although it was a little bit controversial. I like Clifford in his fourth year starting. He finally has his offensive coordinator for 2 years consecutive. So at times he looks pretty good. At times he just does not. But I do like they got a Western Kentucky wide receiver transfer in that had 1,400 yards on the receiving end from Bailey Zappi in that high-powered offense last year. Remember, Bailey Zappi broke Joe Burrow's single-season touchdown record last year. Purdue does have 15 starters back, but they do lose their best two, as I talked about. This is not my favorite game on the card, but I do like Penn State on the road laying 3 or 3.5.
Yeah, I think it's the right line. Right. Like that, when you have a very difficult decision to make there, I think you have a pretty sharp line. And I probably will not personally have any action on this game myself. If I was to lean anywhere, I think I would probably lean on the side of Purdue, man. Just give me the home team, give me the points, give me, kind of the way that you phrase it, the team that is overlooked a little bit. And I will say this, on our Big Ten preview show, Jake Butt, Josh Perry, Christian Hackenberg, they all had Purdue as a top 4 team in the Big Ten. So if they are, look, they're the football experts, man. I'm just here. I'm just the DJ gambler.
Rob, I'll tell you this. In one of the philosophies I have from year to year, and that was a very good season for Purdue. It's hard for a team that exceeds their normal record and follows it up again. So I look for a little bit reverting back to the mean, closer to a 500 season for Purdue. But they do have a considerable amount coming back in the Big Ten this year.
Fair enough. All right, let's stick in the Big Ten. The biggest game of the day on Saturday. 2 top 5 teams facing off. We have Notre Dame at Ohio State. That line there is Ohio State minus 17. Total is 59. Brian Kelly's gone. Do you trust Marcus Freeman, first-time head coach, taking on a team that may have the best quarterback, that may have the best running back, and that may have the best wide receiver in all of college football? 17 points is a lot of points. What do you like there, Jimmy?
17 is a lot, but when you do some of the research on the history of Notre Dame against top 10 teams, in the last 10 times they played a top 10 team, they on the road, they lost by an average of 16 and a half points. The odds makers right there with the 17-point spread. It opened up lower than that, and it was bet up immediately. Ohio State's got all what gets a lot of people's attention at the skill positions at quarterback, wide receiver, and also running back. And my goodness, they had two more that were drafted in the first round. And Smith and Jigba is probably the best out of all of them. He put on a show in that Rose Bowl against Utah. This is a tough one, but I lean toward the points. And Rob, it's because where this game is being played as far as the season is concerned, there's some kinks to work out, even when you have that much returning for the first week. We call it the week of ugly offensive football in college football. That, and every coach, including Nick Saban, has told us over and over and over, you make your biggest improvement in college football from game 1 to game 2. So 17 points is more like 23 or 24 in the middle of October. That's a lot of points. As far as Freeman's concerned, I saw enough of him in the bowl game. I mean, it blew a 3-touchdown lead against Oklahoma State. Brian Kelly just doesn't do that. And so he's got a lot of excitement. Notre Dame felt a little bit jilted when he left for Baton Rouge and, his last score in the 10-year, $100 million deal at LSU. But Brian Kelly never lost to the teams he was supposed to. That may have not been a team that they were that much more favored than in Oklahoma State, but they were in position where they should have won that game, and they didn't. So he's got a long way to go as far as his game management, but he does have them excited, and he's bringing in some pretty big recruits as well. Notre Dame's pretty good at the line of scrimmage also. Might be better than Ohio State up front, both sides. And so I do think if I had to bet this one, I would take Notre Dame plus the 17.
Yeah, I think I lean Notre Dame in this matchup as well. What you said about early season makes a lot of sense. I also think that, Marcus Freeman's a guy that made his bones as a defensive coordinator, and he's had an entire offseason to come up with some kind of a way to try and slow down all of this talent and all of this firepower on the Ohio State side. So I think I actually kind of like the under there as well. It's a little bit of the same logic that you get with West Virginia at Pitt. So I think that we're on the same side there. All right. A couple of Pac-12 SEC matchups. Let's dive into Utah and Florida first, as we already discussed them a little bit. The line has been moving towards Utah a little bit. It's now Utah -3. The game is going to be played in Gainesville. The total there is currently 51. Florida's money line plus 114. Jimmy, I don't know if that's something that is important to you. Let me ask you this before we get into the game itself. How important is this for Utah's chances of making the playoff, right? This is a team that is coming in with a lot of hype. They're ranked top 7 in the preseason. Our George Whitfield keeps calling them the biker gang. I think that the way that he phrased it was Florida has thoroughbreds, but Utah has junkyard dogs. If they lose this game, do they still have a chance? And is it fair to put that kind of a pressure on a team heading into the first game of the season when they're playing on the road?
It might be, but besides the trip, the November 19th to Eugene, this will be the most competitive game that they'll have. I think they're going to be favored in all 12 of their games this year. And I mean, this is their chance. This is their stage. I mean, if they lose this one, I don't know how they're going to get back into the conversation. If they can't go to Florida and beat a mid-level, and that's what Florida is this year, maybe at best a mid-level SEC team, no, they're not going to be up for consideration. I do think last year would have been interesting, and you don't know how the cards are going to fall. I mean, in 2007, LSU got into a 2-team playoff at that time with 2 losses. And there were a lot of strange things that had to happen, including Pitt as a 28-point underdog beat West Virginia in Morgantown. But I love what Utah does. I mean, they are so sound. They make very few mistakes with so much returning. They kind of cut a lot of that rust that we talk about in week 1, the week of, ugly offensive football. I love Rising. I mean, he's a player. And keep in mind, Rising played like that when he wasn't getting number 1 reps all camp long. So he threw in there, those reps were going to Brewer. And that was one of the few mistakes that Kyle Willingham will make. But shame on Utah if they can't get it done here. My Pac-12 friends and Vegas guys are like, man, going down to the swamp. This is a program that is in transition. There's nobody in Gainesville that is going to be ready to run, Billy Napier off if he doesn't have a good season this year. Nobody in Baton Rouge is running off Brian Kelly if he struggles this year, which they probably, both of those clubs will be about 7-5 of this season. That's not their standards, but year one, they get a pass. They really do, because it's just, you come in, there's so few guys that remain anymore when you're making that transition from coaches. So I like Utah in this spot. And yeah, Rob, yes, it's possible, but I mean, maybe a 12, about as possible as a 12-team parlay. I mean, it's just, I don't see it happening. Utah's got to win this when they've hit all off season, man. Gainesville. I love Utah in this spot.
You got to have faith in the retirement parlay, Jimmy. You got to have faith in it. It's going to hit at least once this season, and we're all going to get rich off of it. No, your logic to me is right for Utah. And the reason why I have faith in them on the road is that this is not a team that's going to rely necessarily on needing the fancy plays or the trick plays or relying on like the energy of a crowd to win games. But they're going to go out there and they're going to fight and they're going to win through toughness, through physicality, and through playing that kind of style of football. And I think that can travel on the road, especially because, look, they are going to know how important this game is for their chances, right? And I guarantee everybody in that locker room has the expectation of winning. So I'm going to ride with the biker game. You never want to piss off a biker game. That is for sure.
It means a lot, man. It means a ton. And Whittingham, I mean, just the continuity in the program. I mean, he's been there so long. I kind of feel bad for Utah because, with conference realignment and things, they're still kind of a newbie as far as being a Power 5 program coming over from the Mountain West, maybe 10 years ago or so. But man, that's a well-run program at Utah.
Yep, I agree. And I will say this: if you're going to take Florida, you might as well take the money line there, right? Get the little bit of extra juice and just bet on them being able to find a way to win that game as opposed to just taking the points in that spot. All right, the other SEC Pac-12 matchup, we have Oregon and Georgia facing off in I believe that's the Georgia Dome, right? The Mercedes-Benz. I can't remember what it's called. It's in Atlanta. It's in Georgia. The Dogs are laying 17 points. The total there is 53. I think I lean Oregon in the spot. Is that crazy to say? Betting against the reigning national champs?
No, it's not. And I'm leaning toward the points, again, being in week one. Also, now Stetson Bennett returns as quarterback. He's got the best tight end tandem, maybe top 10 in the NFL as far as those guys are concerned, with Eric Gilbert, the LSU transfer, and the kid from California, from Northern California, who was so good as a true freshman last year. But this is week one. This is where points are at a premium. 17 points is a ton. We know Kirby can recruit. Kirby is recruiting well in Athens when Nick Saban shakes up his staff and makes it more youthful about 4 years ago, because he was beating him on enough kids. But my goodness, a couple of things here working against Georgia. They set record. That was a lot that they lost in the draft. Also, first national championship in 41 years. It's real. Nick Saban even, it's called National Championship Hangover. They've been on the celebration tour. They've been on the banquet tour in the entire offseason, just getting pat on the back. And how much are they grinding in the offseason? How hungry are they after they finally got that ring, since Herschel Walker was a freshman back in 1980? A lot of that says that I think Oregon is playing for a little respect. 17 is a ton of points, especially in week one. I'm leaning toward Oregon a lot as well.
Yeah, Georgia is a team that won with their defense, right? They lost the Kobe Dean. They lost the big fella up front. I'm blanking on his name at the moment. Yeah, Jordan Davis. And they won with their defense and lost probably their two most important defensive pieces from last season. So why are we going to lay 17 points on a team that even last year when they won the title, we had questions about what they were offensively, right? So that's just kind of where I land.
If Stetson Bennett doesn't get it done, it's like, well, he's still tagged a guy that can't win the big one. What happens if Jameson Williams does not go down? And listen, I have money on Georgia in the title game, but let's face it, that was a game changer when he went down with the torn ACL. So it's a program that's been just so hungry for so long. That championship hangover, it's an intangible. It's not something we can quantify, but it is real. Trust me. And I think Georgia, and listen, let's not act like Georgia's not going to be good. Okay. They're going to be favored in every one of their games. I mean, by a lot. Okay. They're probably going to go 11-1 this year, but they're not going to be as good as they were when they won the whole thing.
Yeah, 17 points is a lot of points in that spot going up against another team that has something to prove. I mean, look, if Oregon wins this game, then all of a sudden they're very much in the conversation to make it to the playoff as well. All right, 3 more games that we can roll through pretty quickly. Colorado State at Michigan. Michigan's laying 30 points. The total there is 61.5. Do you have any feel there, Jimmy?
Harbaugh in Michigan, they're a pretty good bully in these spots, and these type of numbers. That's why you've seen a lot of public, the market come in and backing Michigan and laying that point. It's a stay away game for me. But where Nick Saban goes out of his way not to embarrass opponents, it looks like Harbaugh just is fine with beating teams by 55, 60 points.
What do you make of Michigan's plan to start one quarterback one game, start another quarterback another game, and then figure out who's going to be the starter when you get to the third week of the season?
As unorthodox as it is, and the quotes from Jim Harbaugh are perplexing, but you should know as best as anybody, pay attention to the actions and more than just the explanations in the sound bites. The quarterbacks can be more. They can be more evaluated in a true game setting because it's a big difference when you take that non-contact jersey off. Like you can simulate it all you want, but if you are not afraid of getting hit as a quarterback, that's just not that's not a real game. And so as goofy as it is, the schedule allows it because of 2 Rena wins, one player. And I know I'm talking to a lot of quarterbacks as well. They'd rather this than series for series. And let's evaluate that way. So as unorthodox as it is, it kind of actually makes sense from Jim Harbaugh.
All right, we have North Carolina at App State. It is a pick'em. That total is 56 on Saturday. It's a noon kickoff. This feels like a trap. This feels like they're trying to suck you in and say North Carolina is a pick'em against App State. I'll tell you what, man. This feels like you got to tell me why I shouldn't just take my entire bankroll and place it right there on the Mountaineers.
I'm all over the Mountaineers in this one. I love this spot.
Yes.
I mean, it is. I mean, how hungry are they to play Big Brother from in-state? To get them to come from Chapel Hill to come to Boone. First of all, shame on the AD for putting Mac Brown in this situation. A coach. I mean, you just don't agree to these type of things. So there's never a spot where a Power 5 team, a program should be going to a Sun Belt venue, and a Sun Belt venue and a program that's good and that's going to be on fire as far as the atmosphere is concerned. App State is legit. North Carolina, I wonder if the window of opportunity passed by Mac Brown. Preseason top 10 last year, a losing record. Howell is gone. He tried to do it all by himself 2 years ago. They got to the bowl game, the New Year's Six bowl game against Texas A&M. They had the guys sit out, so they lost that one. But still, I wonder if Mac Brown, who's way past his prime, his second stint at Chapel Hill, if this is just going to be sort of a mediocre team and program for a while. Love App State. No doubt that place is going to be on fire in Boone.
And you know what? You said shame on the AD. I look at it the other way. I love games like this. I love when you see the big dog go on the road to play little brother, right? I love it in hoops. I love it in football. I think that creating these environments where you know it's going to be insane in Boone on Saturday, right? That's going to be
no argument.
Yeah,
I do too as a fan. But if I'm coaching a team,
yes.
What the hell are you doing? I mean,
yeah. That's why we're not coaches, Jimmy. That's why we're not coaches. But I want more of this. I love it. Even if North Carolina loses, I don't think we should ding them too much, at least in kind of public perception. They are what they are this season, but I love it, man. We need more games like this. I think that Big Brother should go on the road to play Little Brother as much.
Non-conference scheduling in college football is an epidemic, man. I mean, it's been broken. When I was in school at LSU, you know how our non-conference teams were? Check this one out: Miami of Florida, Texas A&M, and Ohio State.
Yes,
playing in the SEC.
Yes,
those days are long gone. And until it may be one of the good things, if we move forward, we'll kind of get on the same page and sort of mandate teams to play certain teams. But man, I never thought I'd live to see the day where on a regular basis SEC teams are playing SWAC teams.
Yeah, it's not right. I don't like it. All right. Last game, and then we're going to get to our Sunday night hammer. We have Memphis at Mississippi State. Mississippi State is laying 16 points. The total there, 56.5. Jimmy, that's down south. That's your way. What do we got?
Yeah, year three for the quarterback in Mike Leach's system, and he threw for the second most yards ever in the SEC last year, and he took that next step, from year one to year two. He's going to be that much better. This was one of the most misleading scores in all of college football last year. You had like a 95-yard scoop and score. You had a crazy punt, fumble and return where they thought it was down. It was just very misleading. Mississippi State outgained Memphis, I want to say, by over 200 yards. I had Memphis that day. I was very lucky. This is a spot where big time revenge. And Memphis I'm wondering if they're sort of a sliding program, because not just they're not happy that they got left out of the Big 12 as well. And so Norvell, since he's gone, they've kind of come back to the pack. Their defense is going to be horrible this year. They're going to give up tons of points, and that's a team that gave up 40 points a game last year. So I think it's going to be that scoreboard in Starkville is going to be like a pinball machine. I look for State to roll up all kinds of points and win very big.
All right, the Sunday night hammer. We're going down to your boys, LSU, Florida State. The Tigers are laying 3.5 points there. The total is 51.5, according to our partners over at BetRivers Sportsbook. Jimmy, you guys going to get it done? Your boys going to get it done?
3.5. I wish I'd got it because it was a 2.5 for a long time. So I'd really have a soft opinion on the side. But the total, I've got a big opinion. One thing that we all agree on covering LSU, that their strongest unit is their defensive line. Florida State just doesn't have guys this caliber. I mean, we're talking about multiple first-round picks when they come out, and they're mature as well. The third and four-year guys. Florida State, that's one of their big problems is their offensive line. They think they're improved up front, but not with these guys. The weakest unit on LSU is their offensive line. Florida State's defensive line is improved a little bit. LSU's going to have all kinds of problems of blocking Florida State. You got so many new pieces as well. This total is way too high at 51.5. Points will be at a premium. The week of ugly offensive football, all of this evolved, and all of this to where I just think it's going to be very low scoring. I'll take Brian Kelly on the sideline versus Mike Norvell. Don't listen to the reports that Florida State sold all of their 30,000 ticket allotment. They partnered with a broker knowing that they would fall far short. So expect maybe a third of that. The not so neutral site in the Superdome down in New Orleans. I like LSU to win small. Not crazy about the 3.5, but I really like the under.
All right, so let's get into the teaser of the week before we head over to Greg Waddell for our retirement parlay. So I put together the teaser this week, Jimmy. Tell me what you like here, what you don't like, if you think it's crazy. We're going to start with Arkansas teasing it down from 6.5 to their money line. We have Florida plus 8.5. We have Michigan State minus 15.5 and Illinois plus 8 there. That's paying out at plus 292, which means that if you bet $100, you win $292. Jimmy, is that crazy? Anything there you don't like?
Arkansas, man, Fayetteville, that place is going to be popping. Both teams are not going to be as good as they were last year. We know about the 9 guys drafted for Cincinnati, but Arkansas lost a lot as well. But to me, with Bryles at offensive coordinator and Barry Odom at defensive coordinator, I think this is the best coordinator tandem in the SEC. They made Felipe Franks look okay. And if you've seen him in the preseason, it is a disaster. So I like Arkansas. It's shame on them if they lose at home in that atmosphere. Florida, I already told you I like Utah, so it might be. We'll see, but that is a lot of points on the road. I wonder about Michigan State. What we talk about, Rob, teams that perform way higher than they normally did one year. Will they come back to sort of back to the pack? Nobody worked the transfer portal like Mel Tucker. We'll have to see if he can earn that money. And then Illinois, I like what I saw in week 1, even with Wyoming, one of the more depleted. Wyoming, Hawaii, and Nevada, the most depleted rosters in all of college football. I mean, they have nothing coming back. I mean, Vandy had scored 63 points since they played Davidson in 1969. But I like Illinois in this spot going to Indiana, although Tom Allen has been real tight-lipped, closing practices, closing everything. He brought in 10 Power 5 transfers also to try and get them back on track after a disastrous season last year. So We'll see. Good luck. I'll be pulling for you, except for Florida.
And a reminder for people that put together teasers: you never tee through 0, and you always want to make sure you go through 2 key numbers. That's 3, that's 7, that's 10, that's 14. Whatever a normal score would be for one team in a football game, you want to tease through 2 of those. That's the best way to get value out of a teaser. All right, producer Dagan, can we fire up the Week 1 retirement parlay from our own Greg Waddell?
It's time for this week's retirement parlay, brought to you by BetRivers. Now, last week we gave out an 11-leg parlay, and I kind of feel like we were actually pretty close. 8 of the 11 legs hit. I could sniff the winnings. I could sniff the sandy shores of a beach somewhere where I never have to work for Rob Dauster again. This week, we're upping the ante. 12 legs in honor of Week 1, 4 days of football, 4 days of bets. And if this hits, it's a $100 wager to win $39,793.32. You can never forget the cents. Here's the 12 legs. West Virginia money line, Purdue plus 10.5, Michigan State minus 13.5, Virginia Tech money line, Illinois money line, North Carolina money line, Michigan minus 21, Georgia money line, Coastal Carolina money line, Florida plus 10, Boise State money line, and LSU money line. $100 to win over $39,000 at BetRivers.
Tonight, we got the Backyard Brawl Thursday night. Thanks to our partners over at BetRivers Sportsbook. Thanks to Greg Waddell for putting together the retirement parlay. You got to hit it this week, buddy. And thank you, Jimmy Ott. My name is Rob Dauster. We'll see you guys again week 2.